Hey up me duck YouTube, welcome back to another video with Rams fan YT. Well, lockdown trim has really started getting to it, hasn't it? Anyhow, we're on to the last episode of History of Your Club. I know everybody is absolutely devastated, but I am going to have a new series immediately returning next week. So, I mean, it's all more the merrier, I think that's my approach. Anyhow, Wolverhampton Wanderers is actually a very personal team to me. My granddad supports them, and my mum claims, but doesn't even know the manager, so don't know how far we can really go down that claim. And this is a history of that club. Let's start back when they formed, back in 1879. In the 2000 edition of the Rough Guide to English Football, the history section of a Wolves page begins. The very name Wolves thunders from the pages of English football history. As with several other clubs, Everton for example, Wolves had humble beginnings shaped by the twin influences of cricket and the church. No, you wouldn't believe it, would you? The club was founded in 1877 as St Luke's Football Club by John Bainton and John Brodie. They were two pupils of St Luke's Church School in Blakenhall, who had been presented with the football by their headmaster Harry Barcroft. The team played its first ever game on the 13th of January 1877 against a reserve side from Stafford Road, merging with a footballing section of a local cricket club called Blakenhall Wanderers to form Wolverhampton Wanderers in August 1879. Having initially played on two strips of land in the town, they relocated to a more substantial venue on Dudley Road in 1881, before lifting their first trophy in 1884, when they won the Wrekin Cup, during a season in which they played their first ever FA Cup tie. Having become professional, the club were nominated to become one of the 12 founding members of the Football League in 1888, in which they played in the first round of the Football League fixtures ever staged, against Aston Villa on the 8th of September 1888. They ended the inaugural season in third place, as well as reaching their first FA Cup final, which they lost 3-0 to the first double winners, Preston North End. At the conclusion of the campaign, the club relocated for a final time when they moved to Molineux, then a pleasure park known as the Molineux Grounds. Wolves lifted the FA Cup for the first time in 1893, when they beat Everton at 1-0, and made a third FA Cup final appearance in 1896. The club added a second FA Cup final triumph, which was a 3-1 win against Newcastle United, to their 1893 success in 1908, 2 years after having dropped into the second division for the first time. After struggling during the years either side of World War I to regain their place in the top division, a period which was punctuated by another FA Cup final appearance in 1921. The club suffered a further relegation in 1923, entering the third division north, which they won at the first attempt. 8 years after returning to the second division, Wolves regained their top flight status as second division champions under Major Frank Buckley, after 26 years away from that league. With Buckley at the helm, the team became established as one of the leading clubs in England in the years leading up to the Second World War, as they finished runners-up in the league twice in succession in 1937-38 season and the 1938-39 season, as well as reaching the last pre-war FA Cup final, in which they actually suffered a shock defeat to Portsmouth. In 1937-38 season, Wolves came within a whisker of winning the club's first English League title. A win in the side's last game away to Sunderland would have clinched things, but in the event, Wolves actually lost 1-0, and thus ended the campaign at 1 point behind eventual champions Arsenal. One of the things Major Buckley and his Wolves side attracted a lot of attention for in the last two full seasons prior to the suspension of league football during the Second World War was Buckley's insistence that his players be injected with monkey gland extract to enhance their stamina and performance, a practice that the football leagues approved of, but did not prohibit. But it's a bit dodgy, that really, isn't it? When league football resumed after the Second World War, Wolves suffered yet another failure in the First Division. Just as in 1938, victory in their last match would have won the title, but a 2-1 loss to title rivals Liverpool meant that Liverpool were crowned champions instead. This game had been the last in a Wolves third for Stan Cullis, and a year later he became manager of the club. In Cullis's first season in charge, he led Wolves to a first major honour in 41 years, as they beat Leicester City to lift the FA Cup. And a year later, only goal average prevented Wolves from winning the league title. The 1950s were by far the most successful period in the club's history. Captained by Billy Wright, Wolves finally claimed the league championship for the first time in the 1953-54 season, overhauling local rivals West Bromwich Albion late in the season. 2 further titles were soon won in successive years, in 1957-58 season and the 1958-59 season, as Wolves vied with Manchester United to be acknowledged the premier team in English football at that juncture. Wolves were renowned for both for the club's success and for staging of high-profile floodlit friendlies against other top clubs from around the world. Wolves had become one of the first clubs in Britain to invest in floodlighting in 1953 at a cost of £10,000. This is actually £281,308.64 nowadays. Perhaps the most famous of these friendlies actually saw Wolves defeat a Honved side, including the Hungarian national team, that had recently humbled England twice, leading the national media to proclaim Wolves champions of the world. This became the final spur of Gabriel Hanot, the editor of L'Equipe, to propose the creation of the European Cup, later rebranded as the UEFA Champions League. Wolves were one of the first British clubs to participate. In the 1958 season, Wolves defeated Real Madrid 5-4, 3-2 in Wolverhampton and 2-2 in Madrid, in home and away friendlies. The 1960s began very positively, with a 4th FA Cup victory, and Wolves almost achieved the first league and FA Cup double of the 20th century in English football. They were pipped to the league title by a point on the final day of the season by Burnley. Seems to be quite a common affair in Wolverhampton, doesn't it? Despite that bright start to the decade, the 1960s saw Wolves begin to decline. After finishing as league runners-up in 1959-60 season and a creditable third place at league finish in Tottenham Hotspur's double-winning season, the team had faded and Cullis himself was sacked after 16 years in the post in September 1964, after a disastrous start to the 1964-65 season. Cullis' sacking did not prevent the season ending with relegation. The first time, actually, Wolves had known relegation since the 1922-23 season, and the club's first spell outside the top division since 1932. Exile from the top flight lasted only 2 seasons, however, as Wolves were promoted in 1967 as second division runners-up. During the close season in 1967, Wolves played a mini-season in North America as part of the fledgling United Soccer Association League, which imported clubs from Europe and South America. Playing as the Los Angeles Wolves, they won the Western Division and ultimately the championship by defeating the Eastern Division champions Washington Whips in a final decider. The club's return to English football in 1967 heralded another period of relative success under Bill McGarry, with the 4th place league finish in 1971, qualifying Wolves for the newly created UEFA Cup. En route to the UEFA Cup final, they defeated Juventus and Ferencvaros before they lost to Tottenham Hotspur 3-2. A 2-1 home defeat in the first leg proved to be decisive. Wolves lifted silverware 2 years later when they won the League Cup for the first time by beating Manchester City 2-1 in the final. Despite relegation again in 1976, Wolves bounced back at first attempt as second division champions under the manager of Sammy Chung. And then under manager John Barnwell, the turn of the decade saw them finish in the top 6 in the league. 1980 League Cup, when then record signing Andy Gray scored the only goal of the final to defeat the reigning European champions and League Cup holders Nottingham Forest. Thank you very much, Wolves. The multi-million-pound rebuilding of the Molineux Street stand in 1979 was to be a catalyst for the club's near financial ruin during the next decade, plunging match attendances in the early 1980s, at least partly due to the recession in both the national and local economies, and consequent difficulties in repaying the loans taken out to fund the new John Island stand, led to the club to receivership and relegation in 1982. The club was saved from liquidation at the last minute when it was purchased by a consortium fronted by former player Derek Dougan. Initial this takeover, financed by the two Saudi brothers Mahmoud and Mohammed Bharti of the company Allied Properties, brought immediate promotion back to the First Division under the manager of Graham Hawkins. But Batis's failure to invest sufficiently in the club soon saw things unravel, as the team have suffered 3 consecutive relegations through the football divisions under different managers, as well as the almost constant threat of a club being wound up. In 1986, with the club again in receivership, a deal saw Wolverhampton City Council purchase the stadium and the surrounding land, while a local developer paid off the club's outstanding debts in return for planning permission to develop the land adjacent to the stadium. The 1986-87 season saw Wolves' first ever campaign in the 4th Division, where, with the guidance of new manager Graham Turner and the goals of Steve Bull, who would ultimately score a club record of 306 goals, the team reached the final of the inaugural playoffs, but were denied promotion by Aldershot. Building on that, the team achieved both the 4th and 3rd Division championships in the next 2 seasons, and won the 1988 Football League Trophy final at Wembley. Lifelong fan Jack Hayward purchased the club in 1990 and immediately funded the extensive redevelopment of the dilapidated Molineux into a modern all-seater stadium. With work completed in 1993, Hayward redirected his investment onto the playing side in an attempt to win promotion to the newly formed Premier League. Despite substantial spending, neither Graham Taylor nor Mark could fulfill this, both managers leading the team to playoff defeats at the semi-final stages in 1995 and 1997 respectively. It was not until 2003 that Wolves were promoted, when they defeated Sheffield United 3-0 in the playoff final under Dave Jones to end a 19-year absence from the top level. Their stay proved short-lived, however, as they were immediately relegated back to the newly retitled EFL Championship. After former England manager Glenn Hoddle failed to bring a swift return to the Premier League, the rebuilding of the squad by Mick McCarthy rejuvenated the club with an unexpected playoff finish. The club was bought from Sir Jack Hayward by Steve Morgan in 2007, and 2 years later the team returned to the Premier League as the 2008-09 Football League Championship title winners. Wolves successfully battled relegation for 2 seasons before McCarthy's dismissal in the 2011-12 season, which precipitated relegation under his former assistant Terry Connor, who was promoted to replace McCarthy. Following relegation, Norwegian Starley Solbakken became the club's first overseas manager, but his tenure only lasted 6 months before a poor run of results saw him replaced by Dean Saunders in January of 2013. Saunders failed to bring any upturn, culminating in both the club's relegation to EFL League One, a level the club had not played at since 1989, and Saunders' own dismissal. Kenny Jackett was appointed in May 2013 in the retitled position of head coach, and led the team back to the EFL Championship in his first season, setting a new club record points total of 103, which is also an all-time record for the most points accumulated by any team during a third-tier season. On the 21st of July 2016, it was confirmed that the Chinese investment group Fosun International had bought the club's parent company, WW1990 Limited, from Steve Morgan and his own company, Bridgemere Group, for an undisclosed fee, with Jez Moxey stepping down from his role as CEO, replaced by Managing Director Laurie Dalrymple. Days later, the new regime announced that Kenny Jackett's contract with the club had been terminated, and former Italian international Walter Zenga was appointed head coach. Zenga was sacked after just 14 league games, and Paul Lambert was appointed as his successor in November 2016. But at the conclusion of the season, Lambert too was dismissed, with former FC Porto boss Nuno Espirito Santo replacing him. Under Nuno, Wolves went on to clinch the 2017-18 Championship title to return to the Premier League after a 6-year absence. Wolverhampton Wanderers' return to the Premier League resulted in a 7th place finish in their third season back, their highest place in the top division since finishing 6th in 1979-80 season. This position also earned them a place in the Europa League and their first ever European campaign, their first European campaign since 1980-81 season. They won 5-3 on aggregate against Torino in the playoff round in August 2019 and advanced to the group stage, where they played Slovan Bratislava, Braga and Besiktas, home and away, between September and December 2019. Having finished as runners-up in the group stage and defeating Espanyol in the round of 32, 6-3 on aggregate as well. Wolves beat Olympiacos of Greece in the round of 16 over 2 legs on the 12th of March 2020 and 6th of March 2020, thereby reaching the quarter-final stage. In the quarter-finals, they played as a single tie in a neutral venue in Germany. Wolves lost to Sevilla 1-0 on the 11th of August 2020. And I'm pretty certain they actually went on to win it, if I remember rightly. Wolves replicated their 7th place finish in the Premier League in 2018-19, with the same placing in the 2019-20 season, Premier League season, albeit that they recorded 2 more points than in the 2019-20 season from the previous season, and only missed out on a 6th place on goal difference on this latter occasion. So, I hope you all very much enjoyed watching this video. About a club which is fairly close to my heart, not entirely, but family members support them. And up you Rams for the derby game against Nottingham Forest on tomorrow evening. We're going to thrash you 6-1. Just watch my notes. And then, and if you're not of a persuasion, then you'll watch me lather on about something. But I'll tell you what's coming up then. We've got on Sunday, we've got the League 2 Best Winter Transfer. And then the new series is coming next week on Thursday. And you'll just have to wait to see what club I do. Well, I'll tell you. It's Barnsley Football Club because we're doing a championship. It just makes logical sense, doesn't it? So thank you all very much for watching. Subscribe if you're new around here. And I will see you next time.